Hey, it's Captain Matt, Boater's Secret Weapon, and today I wanted to talk to you about running your boat for the first time. Now, there's a couple of just principles you need to understand when you're running your boat for the first time. It's going to be a little bit dependent on the type of boat you have. So pontoons are a little different. Stern drives, which I'm on right now, are different than inboards, are different than jet drives, and twin engines are obviously a little bit different as well. And today, what I'm going to share with you is just kind of basic stuff for each individual type. I've actually got some programs, which I'll mention down the line, that are very specific for each style of boat because of the nuances of each one. So as we go through, the first thing you need to understand is that a boat drives very different than your car. If you think about a car, it's got four wheels that are attached to the ground, and everything tracks from the front wheels. The front wheels turn and everything just sort of follows, right? We're very, very familiar with that. On a boat, it's a little bit different because a boat is just sort of bobbing up and down in the water. It's not stationary. It doesn't have anything where it's affixed to. And when you're in the water, waves, wind, current, all those things can have an impact on where your boat goes. It's why one of the most challenging things for new boaters is docking, is that slow water, tight maneuvering, because the boat just doesn't do what your mind thinks it will. And think of pulling into a parking space. You've done that thousands and thousands of times probably, and you know the angles to take, you know how to pull in and be right between the lines. A boat, you can't just pull in, because not only is it bobbing around based on the elements, but also you steer from the rear. So there's no turning the wheels and everything just follows suit. You've got instead of turning from the rear, you actually more pivot than following along and turning. And the pivot point on most boats, it varies on each boat, but is about 2/3 of the way to the back. That's kind of where things pivot in most situations. That's why in our Best Boat Captain training program, we do the 9 building blocks so you can learn exactly how your boat pivots and where it maneuvers and its different quirks, because even every pontoon doesn't operate exactly the same. And so we try to teach you how your boat operates. So once you put those two things together, we know that we're going to be bobbing and we're never stationary, and 2, that we steer from the back of the boat and we more pivot than turn. Well, now that puts us in a position to, as we're coming in to a docking situation, as we're maneuvering around the fuel dock or coming into a restaurant that's really busy and there's traffic and we're trying to stay out of everybody's way, it makes you understand that, okay, I've got to think about this different than a car, okay? So I've got to forget that and go to my boating paradigm. And then the next thing you need to understand is that in boating, we have momentum. So in a car, you hit the brakes and you stop and you're stationary. In a boat, you start going forward, and even when you come back out of gear, you still have that forward momentum. If you are turning and you're turning to the left side or the port side, when you come out of gear, even if you straighten up the wheel, you still are drifting that general direction. So now we're never stationary. We pivot from the back 2/3. We don't follow the path, but we more pivot. And now we have to worry about momentum. When you put those 3 things together and you understand what the different inputs on your boat, when I go forward and hard left on this boat, I know exactly what it's going to do. When I go reverse and hard right on this boat, I know exactly what it's going to do in that situation. I know that because I've done it a number of times, and I get how my boat operates, how this boat operates. And again, it's what we share in the building blocks of the Best Boat Captain, so you can get to that level of understanding on your boat. So just for a basic understanding of what I mean is, when you're driving your boat, the only time you actually have control of your steering is when you're in gear, forward or reverse gear. When you're in neutral, when you turn your wheel, you really don't have any momentum that's allowing that rudder effect that's turning back there to make any turning. So when you are maneuvering, you've got to be in gear to steer. Now, you don't want to go too fast if you've heard the advice on Facebook, and it's why advice on Facebook really drives me crazy, is because that may be true on your boat, on your propulsion style, on the coast or in freshwater, on a river, on a lake, and it's going to vary. So the generic advice is very hit and miss. But one piece of advice that you'll always hear is never go faster than what you want to hit something. And that's very good advice. So how do we keep our speed down? Is we use neutral. In gear to steer, neutral to keep the speed down. So what I teach in the Best Boat Captain is in gear, out of gear, in gear, out of gear. If you can put that into your tight quarter maneuvering, your boat handling is really going to go super, super fast, okay? So that's the slow water maneuvering and what you need to understand. We pivot. We're always in motion. There's momentum and drift that will continue to happen, and we only steer when we're in gear. Now, the easy part of boating is when you're out in the open water. As long as you know what the basic rules of the road are and what the navigation and the danger markers mean, anytime you see a white buoy with orange and black, that says, hey, there's something going on here that you need to know. If it's a circle, it's going to be a speed zone or a no-wake zone. If you see a diamond, that means danger. That means probably an underwater obstruction, something that can really damage your boat and cause major problems. So slow down, and you want to avoid those areas. The no-wakes, you want to abide by those and know what they mean. And then you've got the red-green markers, the cans and the nuns, that are out there in some areas, at the coast for sure, on some lakes. I've got some right off my port side here. And understand how those markers work. And essentially, they're marking a lane of safe travel, a lane of a channel that you can get through that's nice and deep, okay? Now, they're marked for the most part for commercial traffic in a lot of areas. So they're going to mark for a barge coming through on the lake I boat in Tennessee. When you're at the coast, there's going to be some that are marked in the intercoastal waterway, some that are marked in the shipping channel for the big, huge container ships that are coming through. But what you need to know is you keep a green on one side and a red on the other, and if you stay in the right path, you can go right down the deep part of the channel. But here's what's key, is when do you have the green on the right and when do you have the red on the right? And this is sort of it's going to work in 95% of the situations, okay? And it's called red right returning, going from small water or big water, to small water is returning. So you go from the ocean to the bay to the river, and the river to the tributary. That's going from big to small. So in that situation, you're going to keep the red on your right. Now, when you're at the intercoastal waterway, things are a little bit different. They've got little yellow triangles on them. I've got a whole video that goes into detail on the rules of the road that you want to check out. When you're going from small water to bigger water, or going down current, then you're going to keep the greens on your right and the reds on your left. So that's sort of a basics of navigation. Go watch that other video. It'll be very valuable. But now, when you put these things, when you go out to your boat the next time, you'll have a much more principled understanding of how your boat actually operates. You're going to throw the car scenario out the window. Everything you know about driving and parking for a car doesn't apply to anything you do on the water. And now you can start learning your boat and how it's going to drift. Where is its pivot point? How does the wind and the current impact the boat? The deeper in the water the boat is, the more current's going to impact you. The more freeboard inside you have, the more the wind's going to impact you. So every boat's a little bit different. If you got the Bimini top up, that's going to impact you even more with that wind. It's kind of like a sail. So all of those things you'll get to understand when you put them all together and practice on your boat. Now, I mentioned that every boat's a little bit different. So what I encourage you to do is, one, we've got a free boater boot camp. It's a 2-hour video series that goes into detail on outboards and stern drives, jet drives, and it's going to tell you what, as a boater, what you need to know, what you don't know as a boat owner and a boat operator. And then we also have our Best Boat Captain programs, which are going to teach you how to operate and maneuver your boat safely, especially in tight quarters and docking. That's where we have tri-tune and pontoon version. We have a single engine stern drive. We have a single engine outboard that we do on a center console. We have a twin engine version. And then we have a jet boat version and an inboard single engine that are coming soon. So each one is different. So be aware that the advice that you find online is you don't know what their situation, what kind of boat they're giving advice for, and it's going to be very different. Like on this stern drive, if I don't turn this blower on before I start it, I'm in big danger of potentially blowing up the boat. It's a must do every single time, without exception, without fail. That blower goes on for 3 to 5 minutes before you start it. Every time, no exception. Well, on a outboard, you don't have to do that. On an inboard and a jet boat, you still do. So those little nuances, I think, are very important to why I created those additional programs. So if you want to check those out, you can go to bestboatcaptain.com. If you want that free boater bootcamp, go to boaterbootcamp.com. But hopefully this gives you a better understanding of some of the principles of boating, so you can go out and have a much better time with a lot less stress and a lot more enjoyment on the water.